Fans, we are back live with another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling. Pleased tonight to have a special guest on, a man who certainly knows what it means to get extreme and other areas as well. He not only was a play-by-play color announcer personality for Extreme Pro Wrestling based out of California, but also the very innovative and exciting entity that was Wrestling Society X on MTV. Of course, I'm talking about Kris Kloss. Kris, thanks for coming on tonight, sir.
Thank you, Jack. Good to be here with you and all your fans, my friend.
Well, we do appreciate your time, and I know a lot of the fans have been looking forward to this one. I'll start off, though. I find it's helpful when doing a career interview to ask about the basic question. Were you a fan of the business growing up? And if so, what did you follow companies territory-wise, sir?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if I've ever ran into too many people. At least back in the day, I don't think I ran into too many people at all that were in it that weren't fans. The only ones that maybe were the exception were the girls that were getting into the business. That they weren't not quite as much, but for the most part, everybody was a big fan. And yes, I was a big fan. Of course, I'm a child of the '80s, so of course the rock and wrestling era, NWA, WCW. Also, I remember early education on. We had some sort of satellite for a minute. We had that with my dad, and he was watching world class early mid '80s, and so we remember watching that, my sister, my dad, and I, and it was like, what is this? This is crazy. This is like, this is the real one. This one's the real wrestler, and a little bit of AWA as well. But I remember really the world class sticking out to me. As far as being different from WWE and WCW. But yeah, absolutely. We grew up in LA, started going to house shows in the mid-late 80s and at the LA Sports Arena. And it's just at one point in time, I had to be a part of this business. I had to be on the other side of the curtain. I just infatuated with the whole thing,
Was there kind of most of us that get involved, we have a very similar story, and we're about the same age too, so we have the same kind of reference points. But was there kind of a moment where you went, boom, I'm going to do this, and this is how, or did it just kind of form?
Well, I know that at one point I just got to the point where, like, okay, Kris, that's the WWF guy, in high school. It got to that point. I do remember, and I've shared this story before. I'll just be really quick. Going to a house show at the sports arena. So my family and I, we go to Laker games, Dodger games, and we were at the sports arena, and on the way home, my mom says, hey, are you okay? I was like, yeah, why? And she says, well, I don't know. Something's a little off. And what do you mean? And she said, well, you're just looking, you weren't watching the action. You weren't paying attention. You were just looking around, like kind of daydreaming. And I was looking at the fans, and I remember this, like, I was so enamored with the fans. It looked exactly the same as if we were at a Laker game or a Dodger game. It looked exactly the same, and I was in awe that this wrestling thing is capturing these fans the same way a real sport was capturing them. And I was just like, I'm amazed. And I remember that the first show that I kind of like that out of body or out of box, thinking outside the box. And it was at that point where it's like, I want to know how this gets these people to do this the way a real sport does. I want to be on that side of the curtain. I couldn't tell you
Mhm.
exactly when that was probably in the late 80s sometime. And I remember that was kind of that aha moment, as far as wrestling goes.
Mhm. So did you initially have your sights on an in-ring role, or where did you figure that you would fit into the matrix, so to speak?
I actually, for whatever reason, for the longest time, I would do a ladies and gentlemen in throughout the schoolyard, throughout in class, and so everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, you sound just like the Fink," and ladies and gentlemen, this is Sting, doing the capetta. So so I just kind of was like, "Oh, that'd be cool to stand out there and do that," and our friends, and so I kind of just thought it's for no rhyme or reason, just other than doing the announcing. Um, and then I liked announcing. And I was getting into voiceover. So it was kind of like that's where I would fit in the business. I never thought about being a wrestler. I never had a like, oh, I should have been a wrestler. I just never. I just wanted to be a part of the industry, part of the business. And I wanted to be on the camera. I wanted to produce, though, too. I wanted to be a part of the inner workings of the storytelling and the feuds and all that, to a point. My production credits, my producing credits, like for WSX, for example, I was a part of the writing, but most of that was, let me interpret this to the audience with my play-by-play. uh, but it was a little bit more than just play by play. It was, I'm now an associate producer, which I did on WSX. So that was a lot of fun, and that was okay. This is where I can execute my chops of what I've learned throughout the years of how this whole business works, and narrate it the way I'd like to at the
Mhm.
same time.
Mhm. That's interesting. Most of us from the golden era, the TV era, so to speak, the rock and wrestling era, wanted to get right into the ring. It's interesting that you had a higher mind for the business even initially.
I guess, I mean, if that's what you want to call it, but I yeah, I did. I mean, I love the tongue in cheek. I love the psychology, but it didn't really matter to me whether I wrestled or announced, type thing, as long as I was, because I think everyone's part of it, no matter what chess piece you are. You're part of this entity, this team that is going to go out there and represent our league, whatever it is at the time, our team. We're a one football team, basketball team playing another team, the other opposing league, or the arena that we have to fill up, or the TV ratings we have to get. We're all on the team to do good at that.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, it didn't matter, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the performance aspect. I was like, I'm performing just as much as the wrestler is in the ring as Mr. Play-by-Play guy. I think I was performing just as much as anybody else, so I wasn't losing. Oh man, I wish I was doing what they were doing. I'm fine with, this is awesome what I'm doing, kind of thing.
So, how did you, when you landed on doing the announcing deal? How did you, or where did you go to seek the training that you needed for that role?
Oh my gosh. I mean, to be honest, I was self-taught. I was doing this in the schoolyard for a very long time. I was paying my dues and had my practice, and I always thought I was pretty funny, and my friends always, oh yeah, Kris is pretty funny, kind of. So I always knew I kind of got a comedy at a very early age. I remember like uh, finding an 8-track cassette of Red Fox live in concert at a very young age, when I wasn't supposed to know where that 8-track was. Um, But,
8 tracks. There's a trip.
yeah, right. Just that in general. But I remember like early on, comedians like Gary Shandling, right? Why is this little kid into Gary Shandling? It's adult, not adult humor as far as blue humor, but raunchy, but just the thought provoking humor. So I remember my mom, my dad, my mom kind of noticed, wow, look at, he's getting this humor. So I got that, and then I was practicing that at that point. Then you add like understanding. Well, look at Mean Gene. I know he's an act. Oh, and look how he's doing it. I got that at a very young age. So I was impersonating that a lot with my friends and all that, and we'd have mock up things. Now that's not going to um that's not going to be your all in all education, because I'm a mark. I still have to get in the business. I have to understand the inner workings. I have to know what it means to protect the business. So, but as far as all that goes, that came naturally because I was practicing it for years. And then now I fine tune it once I get in there. Oh, okay, this is what I take out. This is what I put in. Because my first few matches I can't watch today was early XPW. I was like, ooh, I cringe, you know.
So how did you first meet the man behind XPW then and now, Mr. Rob Black? And what was your introduction to the company?
Well, we were doing out here in Southern California, we were doing something called Southern California Championship Wrestling. It was an indie league back when there really weren't indie leagues. I mean, really weren't any indie shows. There was a legendary place out in the Valley, San Fernando Valley, called Slammers Wrestling Gym. Dynamite D, the great late Dynamite D, the late great, was part of it. He had a cable radio network radio TV show that was very rare, and he kayfabed. He was a kayfabe host. It was great. And he would promote Slammers. So it was a small, indescript location place. Boom! But they had this museum when you walked in. It was a car. It was an auto body shop with a little office in the garage, but the garage was made into a ring, arena with one row around it. By the garage door was a Hall of Fame. You had the Russians, Fabulous Moolah, Gorgeous George, all their actual robes and stuff, like maybe like 4 or 5 cases Hall of Fame.
Cool.
And then you had the office where you would go in and pay with your cars in the garage, and that was the lobby. And it had 8x10s of any name you could think of in the business, covering the wall like a Jewish deli or Italian restaurant with celebrity pictures, and so this place existed. It went under. Dynamite D formed SCCW, so we took it on the road. And I came to the show. I introduced myself again because I'd hung around Slammers. You guys need a ring announcer, and I did the Fink impersonation. Yeah, okay, go do the ring crew. I was ring crew, and then we were passing out flyers at the Arrowhead Pond, Anaheim, for a WWF house show. Well, Rob Black happened to be there, and he got a flyer. But now, in the meantime, Rob was working with Paul Heyman. I don't know if you know this part, but the history of Rob was working with Paul Heyman, supplying Heyman girls like Jasmine St. Clair and whoever else to appear on ECW, right? And Rob and Paul were working, and Rob was actually going to be like spearheading and taking care of ECW doing West Coast shows. Well, if you know Paul Heyman and if you know Rob Black, you know that relationship is not going to last long. They're going to, yeah, exactly. They're just, in a lot of ways, they're too similar, And so Rob, F this, I'm going to do my own thing. Well, he happened to be at the pond, Anaheim Pond, got our flyer, called Kevin and Patrick Hernandez and Dynamite D. Those were the 3 guys running SCCW. They had meetings and all that. Long story short, a year later, we became XPW. As far as Rob goes, I was just a ring announcer for SCCW. Well, I go. We had a big meeting at the office in Van Nuys, and I came by my folks' house, and I told them where I was going, and they're like, "Hey, you got to put a suit on." I'm like, "Oh, this is just a wrestling thing." No, you should put a suit on. All right, I'll put a suit on. I go over there. All the wrestlers are there, and I'm the only one with the suit on. And Rob's walking around, and he goes to Kevin, "Who's the guy with the suit?" He's like, "Oh, that's our announcer, Kris Kloss." I was, okay. And that's kind of how it started. I was just the ring announcer. Once we did our first show, we go to the edit bay. Rob goes, "Kloss, get in there and call the match." I'm like, "Well, I'm the ring announcer." He goes, "Oh, hey, Kevin, we got to get another ring announcer. Kloss, get in there and call the match." Just very casual. That was it.
Wow.
I was I that was my first time ever doing it. Was the first ever XPW cassette. I was just looking to be a ring announcer.
Wow. So
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yeah.
So wrestling.
Yeah.
Got a spot. Let's fill it.
That's
What was your relationship like with Black? We've heard a lot of different sources allegedly saying he was really hard on the talent, and I'm not talking about the Messiah thing, but just in general, he was a very difficult boss to work for. But I've never heard your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, Rob was Rob. Rob was rough around the edges, man, and he was a ball buster, and politically incorrect for sure. And it was like you kind of felt like you're going into the lion's den when you went in there every week, and it was this kind of this crazy underworld feeling when you were there. But at the same time, everyone knew that we're all going to be there paying our dues. Like, we're all going to get shit on. We're all going to eat crow at times. And in a way, that was like the end of that wave, even in all of professional wrestling, where it was gritty, where it was, hey, you got to pay your dues. And it was, and also not to, it doesn't really relate to this, but it was the end of the wave also with kayfabe being protected. We were still protecting kayfabe at that time. And so that whole era kind of was one and the same, but that was all still going on. But as far as like paying your dues and putting your time in when you gotta eat crow and all that. Yeah, dude, XPW was as brutal as I can't imagine anything being more brutal. Hey, get the fuck up, shut the fuck up and do your job, and motherfucker, da 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 da. It was just normal talk, and we kind of you saw the guys that had a thick skin, the guys that made it, the guys that could take it. I'm not bragging or anything like that, because it sucked, like at times to go in there and guys are dogging on you, and then okay, now action, like. But that's what it was with everybody, and I look back at that now as, oh my gosh, man, like these kids today have no idea, no clue, and that's what they're offended on. Oh my gosh, man, you guys have no idea. Therefore, they don't have a thick skin. Like, because I'll be honest, man, after going through the paying your dues and just being at work with Extreme and Rob and XPW, any job after that was cake. It was, I mean, really, it was like, oh my gosh, it was kind of it was like a drill. It was like a mental, like a drill sergeant, mental drill sergeant boot camp. It turned into that, it absolutely turned into that. And so I don't look back at any of that as negative or anything at all, because I'm glad that and it's not just Rob, because again, it was the business was still kind of there as well, but Rob is definitely he's a different cat, completely different person. I can't know who I can compare Rob Black to. There's only one, Personally, with me, yeah, Rob can be an ass, but he'll tell you he's an ass kind of thing. He's not pretending to be something. He's not like being an ass and saying, "What do you mean? I'm not an ass. I'm a nice guy." Now he won't even tell you that. He'll tell you, you know. So some guys got along with him a little bit better than other guys, or some guys understood almost the gimmick of Rob Black, which is, whether it's a gimmick or not, I get it. I'll go along with it. And some guys would not get it at all, and they would be like, they'd be gone, you know, and it'd be like, guys, don't take it so seriously. I know it sucks. You got to eat your crow, but dude, don't really take it so seriously. Rob's in this. He likes this. He's doing this. He's having fun. It's a wrestling league, and we, you know, I just looked at it as part of that's how wrestling was. Now it's, oh, that's the old school. But at the time, that's how wrestling was. It was this like fraternity that you had to like. It was a privilege to be a part of this whole backstage thing, and then the kayfabe thing went along with that. For me, like being able to protect kayfabe, that was exciting to me. That I get to be on this side of the curtain protecting the kayfabe thing. I thought that was an honor. You know, that was, again, like when I was a kid. How do these guys back in the curtain at the sports arena, how do they do that? Oh shit, now I'm back on the side of the curtain. That was awesome to me. You know?
Yeah, I think that's important that you put the context around that, because, you know, for those who didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s, you're not going to understand. Life was people on the street really didn't care about your feelings and your safe space. And wrestling was as you said, a protected fraternity with it wasn't an easy go for many people. So with that context, it's important to not judge it in today's societal terms. Wanted to ask you about this question. Of course, this would come up. Do you know about the guys that cut off Messiah's finger?
I know exactly what you guys know. You know, I had Billy on my podcast, Extreme Memories. I was doing for all you fans out there that know about it, but for those that don't, when the pandemic hit, I got a producer friend by the name of George Hermosa, and he approached me with the idea before the pandemic, and then he approached me again about doing Extreme Memories, the history of XPW and all its wrestlers, and doing shoot interviews with everybody. So we did that for over 2 years. YouTube.com/The Wrestling Chatter. And it's, you can archive all the interviews. Extreme Memories, and Messiah Billy was on. Had a great talk with him. Great guy. He's doing very well. Beautiful family. So I know what you guys know. You know, I have, you know, everyone's got their suspicions, and pretty I don't know, it kind of seems a little obvious what happened, you know, but I know what everybody, we were all there when it went down, but it was kayfabed from everybody, you know, and so we just, all right, we're here doing our job, and I don't know what to think, what to say. This is all so bizarre, wild, weird. When that all happened, like, what is this that we're a part of? What the hell is, like, it was crazy, you know? And
the Yakuza.
Oh my gosh, yeah, yes, yeah. And I mean, to this day, like, what the heck, man? Yeah, so but at the same time, no, we were all, I mean, everyone had their ideas, but no, we were completely kayfabed, and most people, when they were kayfabe, were like, all right, good, keep me kayfabed. I don't want to know, you know, type thing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, XPW was known for, like, almost right from Jump Street, of pushing, you know, the boundaries of the product, even in terms of ECW. You were involved in some many crazy moments in the ring. Aside from the free fall event, which I want to give separate consideration to, what would you say, if you, and this is, I know, a tough question as well, if you had to boil down to a couple of your your most memorable moments of in-ring insanity, what would those be?
Okay, so I'll definitely say that, yeah, free fall, man. That was like I was, oh, we'll get to that. Well, what was an honor was when Terry Funk came up. We were doing the announcing at the LA Sports Arena for XPW's Go Funk Yourself, and they were fighting all over the place. When Terry Funk got mad, we didn't. He worked everybody. He worked the workers. Unbelievable, unbelievable how convincing he was in the back to us. It's unbelievable. That was the first time I saw like a true, like, wow, that's a work, but at the time I was being worked.
Mm-hmm.
So when we realized it, it was like, wow, that's wrestling right there, so they were fighting all over. No one knew what, like, because he got pissed off at something, and we all thought he was pissed off at something for real, And then he came up. He didn't have to do this, but he came up to the announce table. Rivera took off running, and I'm like, I'm not gonna run because I want to be a part of this. But he grabbed me, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is gonna be stiff or what, but he clobbered me, and I didn't feel a thing. I don't know if it was because my adrenaline. Maybe he did hit me hard because everybody said he didn't. He potatoed you, but I kind of fell into it. But I was like, I don't even know if that was hard because that was my adrenaline, and that was great in front of a huge crowd. And one other one was oh, well, it wasn't in front of a live audience, but I had the Blade once, and I'll never forget that. I had to gig. And it was on XPW TV episode. I had the number. I want to say it's episode 80. If you go to on YouTube, there's a lot of XPW TV episodes up. There's over 130 episodes. But we were introducing this guy named Crimson, and he was the guy that would come in the middle of a match. He'd have a scream, not a scream mask, but like a white weird jumpsuit and a weird white mask on, and he would just attack guys with box cutters, and they would blade, and he would leave, and who the hell was that, So he'd already came in the middle of like 2 or 3 matches. We were talking about him on the outro of XPW in the studio, and now he comes into the studio and he attacks the announcer. So I did that. They asked me like, hey, you want a gig? I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't want to, but then I'm like, you know what? This is like a bucket list wrestling thing. Okay, I'll do it. And like some of the boys were there, Supreme, Chaos, Webb was always there doing the editing. I can't remember who else. And the guy who was Crimson. And they're like, yeah, come on in, Kloss. Like I popped my cherry, like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Okay, this is what you do. And then I had to drink like 6 or 7 beers, Budweisers, I remember, to thin my blood, then take aspirin. So when I'm doing the wraparounds, like in the suit and tie, like I'm watching, like, oh shoot, I'm drunk right there. Like, but I was playing it straight. And then I go, he attacks me, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I do that, and I'm like, oh, I didn't feel anything. I start going, and then he goes, grabs me. And I'm like, am I good? He's like, oh, shit, yeah, you're good. No more. Fuck, don't. You're fine, That, I remember that. That was definitely memorable. I was finishing up college, too, at the time at Cal State Northridge. And I'm going back in Monday morning.
With a gig mark.
Yeah, scabs all over. Like, what the hell happened to you?
That's awesome.
Yeah, those 2 moments. I mean, there were just so many wild shows, like at Birmingham High at the Grand Olympic Auditorium, where we would just end the night with like fire, blood everywhere, and I remember it was some shows were just spectacular. Like there were some great live events which ended up being put on DVD. And then sporadic matches on television, our weekly television show. But just insane nights where it's like, how did we pull this off? What the hell just happened? It was wild and exciting being a part of it. I'll be honest, because I would turn into a fan, watching some of these shows, like, oh, that was amazing, and we were a part of something special, we knew it, and we had that fan base, and being on television absolutely helped, of course, uh, and that in itself was special to be a part of that.
Yeah, no doubt, which history seems to bear out as well. You touched on the volatile personalities that were our Rob Black and Paul Heyman. When you look back from your recollection, two-part question: when did that rivalry seem to heat up? And of course, where were you during the infamous, or were you heat wave incident?
Well, I was ringside. I was right there at ground zero, literally on the ground floor at the Grand Olympic. Let me see if I get this right. It was Supreme, Christy Mist, myself, Homeless Jimmy, Messiah, and there was one more down there with us. And I can't, man, why am I blanking on this? So Chaos, Jimmy, Messiah, Christy. Oh, maybe that was it. Supreme and myself. Dang, I if I'm forgetting somebody, it'll come back to me. But anyway, we were the ones down ringside, and then up top there, Kevin Kleinrock and the other part of the crew was up there. But man, that was a crazy wild night too. Like when we went in there, like, whoa, like it was weird. It was like, we're here, we're at the show, but in a weird way, like, I mean, it was like a weird dream, or a weird scenario where when you're a kid and you're afraid of public speaking or something, and people are kind of glaring at you. Like, we were there was the show, but it felt like 1,000 people were kind of like, okay, kind of looking at us. Like, it was kind of weird. Never experienced anything like that before or since. But we just kind of ended up there. We kind of, like, one thing led to another. We didn't really plan much out. We're just like, oh, we got tickets. Great. Oh, we're going to the show. Great. Oh, we're going to sit right here. Okay, cool. What? We got to turn our XPW shirts inside out? Okay, we'll do that. Okay, we're all going to sit here. Yeah, we're all going to kayfabe. Okay. It's just kind of one thing, one foot in front of the other, as far as getting to where we got. And unfortunately, I think Kevin was the one that bought those ringside tickets. And when you look at the map, here's the ring, here's the floor seats. You had a flip of a coin to pick which side to sit on to be on the hard cam. Mm-hmm. And you want to be an opposite hard cam if you want to be on television. Well, Kevin just picked one of the two sides, and unfortunately, that happened to be the same side as the hard cam. So you couldn't really see us unless the camera kind of panned by us. But yeah, I'll admit, man, that was a scary moment because we were way outnumbered. And then the fans, there were some XPW fans in there, but at the time, it was mostly ECW fans. So when we got escorted out, it was like, are these fans going to kind of come down on us here? Like, remember, this was a different time, not only in wrestling, but it felt more controlled, and more people weren't afraid to throw down as much as they are now, really. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it wasn't that abnormal for a fight to break out in an arena. And now, everyone's got a camera. Everyone's going to call law enforcement, or it was just a different time. And I realize that even more now, looking back, comparing it to today. But yeah, that was a crazy moment, but we all got caught up. And a lot of it justifiably, a lot of it like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have got caught up that much. But a lot of it was, we all felt hey man, you know, they are coming into our backyard. Hey, we are making waves right now. We are doing our own thing. And the first major city they go into that's out of their normal comfort zone, really, it's going to be LA, really. And this is right before we were doing those shows. When we were doing shows at the LA Sports Arena, TV was taking off for us, so we did take exception to it. And there was a lot of feeling of that from all of us performers. So we were really like, hey, we were protecting our team, our baby. And so there was a lot of realism in that whole heat wave deal, you know.
Francina said that somebody grabbed her or something like that, and that's what started the whole thing. Is that your recollection at all? Or
I remember Joey Styles, who I became friends with later, by the way. Great guy. Joey's very cool. But no, that was something that Joey had to say, because they were not going to acknowledge us on the pay-per-view at all. They were not going to acknowledge us. And because they didn't acknowledge us, it actually made the fans wonder even more, like what really did happen here. No, that was just something they had to say. But if a fan did grab her, it wasn't one of us, for sure. It was not. We're, at the end of the day, we're all workers. We're not gonna let me tell you know. But I don't think anybody grabbed her. We didn't see any of that. She wasn't even really near us, you know. Just was the security that came near us, and the boys. Some of the boys that came were some of the wrestlers that came out that weren't involved in that match of Dreamer and Just Incredible. Those were the guys that kind of got involved, you know.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's hard to imagine something like that happening at a show in this day and age, for sure.
And you know, so yeah, and you know what, Jack, too. Also, that was like the realism of that invasion. Looking back, was like, you know, there's so many invasion angles, but this was actually executed as an invasion, you know. And one of the things that fans, I didn't understand at the time, like when we left, like, holy crap, did that just happen? Did we just do that? Oh, what's going to be the feedback of this? And when it came out across as negative, oh, that was messed up that you guys did that, that was lame, I couldn't believe it, because it was like we were like, you know, all these fans want these invasion angles because these invasion angles are awesome, so they recreate them. Well, shit, man, we just did one for real. What do you mean you don't like it? You know, like, why would you shit on this when this is what we want, you know? So, but anyway, it was cooler to like ECW at that time than it was to like XPW.